Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2018 Hearthstone World Championship. I'm Lappyzard, I'm joined by Chris, and we are going to be bringing you Game 5 of our first semi-final between Azumo and Antrizi. Now, this is an important match for both players, obviously, as it gets them to the grand final, but they have both had very storied runs to get here. Azumo has been taking down tournament after tournament after tournament all year long, and this would be the final crown jewel for him to become world champion. Antrizi, meanwhile, obviously has his sights set on this title, but particularly because in his road to get here, he took down reigning world champion Tom60229. So we are coming now to one final game to determine which of these players will be going to the finals for that shot at the title. It's going to be Antrizi on the Murloc Paladin versus Azumo on the Zoo Warlock. Now, what do you think of this matchup, Chris?
Typically, this is just a matchup based off of early tempo and board control, whether it's Antrizi's call to arms or Azumo's early removal. We'll see who can ultimately claim the early board control and snowball that into the later turns.
Yep, these are both very synergy-driven, snowball-y type decks, so it's going to come down a lot to who can wrest control of the board from the other. And it looks like we have the mulligans, so let's go and jump into game number 5.
Your soul shall be mine. I will fight with honor.
Nice start for Antrizi. You see a couple 1-drops and call to arms. Decides to get rid of the Chung. Looks like he's got other plans for that coin. Azumo, meanwhile, keeps only his Vulgar Homunculus, tosses the others to look for a 1-drop. Picks up that Kobold Librarian. Nice play early on to get on the board.
With the Demon Fire top deck too, it's early tools that can really help him solidify his early board.
Yep, that should certainly help him pick apart the Murlocs in combination with the minions he already has. Antrizi picks up the Grimscale Chum, decides to go for it, gets a buff on his Tidecaller. Had he just played the Tidecaller, it would die on board to this Kobold Librarian, but decides to get the buff for later.
Pretty simple play here from Azumo, 1-drop into 2-drop, the 2-drop being a very strong play, and without a very simple answer for Antrizi here.
Yep, decides to trade off the Murloc, just deny any of those synergies to Antrizi. Looks like instead of wanting to coin Call to Arms into Call to Arms, he's going to go for the Rallying Blade early, try and get this Homunculus off the board before he starts building his own.
It's an interesting play to say for sure. Being able to clear that board will be important heading into those later turns, but we'll see if he can do it.
Azumo, not wanting to buff, goes for a life tap and picks up the Glacial Shard, a great draw for him to be able to lock out this Rallying Blade and preserve his board.
Unfortunately, he did get punished. One of the few next to Blood Fury Potion that would have actually been enough to make sure he couldn't answer that board.
Alright, now Antrizi faced with a decision here of what to play. Looks like he was going for a Tidecaller Hero Power, changes his mind, decides he wants the extra stats. And I can't blame him. This is all about the board. You want as many stats in play as possible.
Unfortunately, though, that Soulfire and Blood Fury hand is going to do quite a lot here.
Yep, going to allow Azumo to fully clear off the board and keep his Homunculus out of range of that Rallying Blade.
But Antrizi does have Call to Arms heading into turn 4, so if he can hit a Knife Juggler, it may be enough.
That's very true. Let's see. Doesn't manage to get it. Does get the Righteous Protector, which will be able to deal that last point of damage to this Homunculus, as well as protect his Murlocs.
What do you think about this turn 5 play for Azumo?
Now, normally you might just slam the Dreadlord, but it doesn't do a whole lot. You still lose your 5-1 to that Righteous Protector, so he's going to go for a Spellbreaker and a Voidwalker instead. Decides to trade off the Rock Pool. That leaves Antrizi with only 2 power, which is not enough to punch through this Voidwalker.
It is ultimately a strong play and does actually answer the Megasaur, so I don't think we'll see that coming from Antrizi here.
Nope, decides to go for a Call to Arms, hoping to land a few more Murlocs under that Megasaur's buff. Gets the Juggler, does not manage to hit the Voidwalker though, would have been able to clear it off if he had.
It's pretty unfortunate. but being able to create a more difficult board to deal with, and with 2 cards from Azumo, he may not have a simple answer here.
Yep, decides to throw in the 1/1, doesn't want to just lose it to the Despicable Dreadlord. Can't rule it out from last turn, because as we saw, it was there, but it was not the best play. Crystal Weaver is the pickup for Azumo, going to allow him to significantly buff this Voidwalker and help cement his position on the board.
It's a strong top deck that ultimately, with Demon Fire, is able to kill both of the 2 strongest minions on board for Entrezi.
Thought about buffing his Voidwalker, but decides he would rather get rid of the extra body, clear off both the Knife Juggler and 2 of the Murlocs, while keeping 2 minions for himself.
Purifier Maul is a strong top deck here, especially likely a Hydrologist Secret being able to kill at least the 4/1 is quite strong here.
Yep, going to be able to help him stick likely 2 Murlocs into his next turn for the Gentle Megasaur. Could be considering a Hydrologist and a Megasaur, but I don't think any of the adapts are particularly good right now, so I would like to see him go for this Maul.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no adapt that allows you to do both a 4/1 and a 5/4 with this 1/2 here, so I think the Purifier's Maul seems to be the play.
Doesn't get Noble Sacrifice or Redemption, which were probably the 2 he was looking for, but decides to go with Eye for an Eye. Very interesting choice, considering Azumo's still at 23. Seems like he would be a long way from killing him.
Entrezi is a smart man. He knows that if you can get the opponent to 0 life, you win the game, so...
Yeah, you usually do that through repetitive minion damage, though. Would have liked to see him take a secret that would help preserve his board somewhat. Hitting into the Crystal Weaver does encourage Azumo to go to the face, so he does get that 5 damage.
He does sit at 18, though, and with a Megasaur, has a lot of potential damage here.
Yep, decides to life tap and go for the Dreadlord, get rid of that Divine Shield. War Leader is the draw for Entrezi. How much damage is this?
That's sitting with a Wind Fury that's sitting at 16, which would be lethal.
Doesn't get the Wind Fury, though. He does find attack, but that's just not enough. He is 1 damage off.
You've got to feel quite bad that he ultimately decided to not attack face there.
Yeah, that weapon could have gone to the face last turn, and then this would have been lethal, assuming Azumo still decided to go face with his Crystal Weaver. Spending a long time here deciding between attack and, I guess, poisonous? I would think you would take attack, you know, it does the same job of allowing you to trade off the board, but it leaves you with more power in play afterwards.
Likely, yes. Poisonous, assuming you make both of those trades, does leave you at 6 life here, and we both know that Azumo here does have Doomguard in hand.
Yep, just out of range of that Doomguard, sitting at 6, goes for the trade. Puts his weapon into the Crystal Weaver, though. It does protect his lethal on board, but unfortunately it gives lethal over to Azumo. This Doomguard is going to close out the series and lock up game number 5. And that means Azumo is headed to the Grand Finals for a shot at becoming the World Champion. A nice spot there from Entrezi with that cheeky Eye for an Eye lethal setup, but unfortunately doesn't quite get the role he needs. Almost feels like a bit of a missed opportunity not having gone face with the weapon.
Entrezi's really trying to play it big here, trying to go on hoping he did not have Doomguard or that last Soulfire, but unfortunately he did have it in hand.
Well, they say go big or go home, and it looks like Entrezi decided to do both. But this moment is all about Azumo, who is joined on stage with Frodan for a winner's interview.